raise your right hand. The evidence you shall give the court and the jury in the trial of this issue should be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Thank you. Step this way, please.
All right. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Dean.
Good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Rajabi, and I'm a special agent with the FBI in the Augusta office.
Could you spell your first and last name for the jury and for the court reporter, please?
Sure, it's Farrrah, and last name is Rajab, B as in boy, I.
And you mentioned that you're a special agent with the FBI. How long have you been with the FBI?
About 5 years now.
And can you tell us a little bit about your education before joining the FBI?
Sure. I attended Baylor University in Texas. I have a law degree from South Texas and Houston, Texas. I was with Homeland Security Investigations before I became an agent with the FBI.
And have you been stationed or assigned to the Augusta office for the entirety of your time with the FBI?
Yes, I have.
And at some point, did you become involved in the investigation into the disappearance of Quentin Simon?
Yes, I did.
And how did that happen?
My supervisor at the time, Brian Ozden, received a call from the then supervisor of the Savannah FBI office, Will Clark, and asked if we would help locate Henry Bubba Moss, who was the presumed father of Quentin Simon, and he was located in Burke County, and the Augusta FBI office covers Burke County.
And do you remember what date or what approximate date this was that you initially became involved in the Bubba aspect of the case?
I believe it was October 5th of 2022.
Okay, so that would have been day one then, right?
Yes.
And after that, did you conduct some interviews relating to the whereabouts of Henry Bubba Moss Jr. on the night of October 4th?
Yes, that day we went down and located him.
Did you yourself interview Henry Bubba Moss Jr.?
I was with Brian Ozden, my supervisor, and a task force officer with our office named Lee Belmer.
Okay. And were you present for that interview?
I was.
And did it occur?
Yes, it did.
Did you all, as a team or individually, interview anybody else in relation to Henry Bubba Moss Jr.'s whereabouts on that night?
His girlfriend, Christian Black, was also present, so we interviewed her as well. It was kind of a joint interview.
And did anybody speak to his boss?
Yes, Lee Belmer spoke to his boss on the phone.
And that's the task force officer you mentioned?
Yes.
So it sounds like there was an effort to follow up on the whereabouts of Henry Bubba Moss by your office.
Yes, absolutely.
Did you all have some kind of ongoing contact with him during the investigation?
Yes, we contacted Mr. Moss several times. After that initial interview, we went back and obtained a DNA sample from him, and we also let him know that Quentin was likely deceased.
What was the date that you collected a DNA sample from him?
I believe it was October 13th.
Okay. And was that, did he agree to that, first of all?
Yes, he did.
So you did not need to obtain a search warrant for his DNA or anything like that?
No.
Right. He just willingly allowed you to take it?
Yes.
Okay. How do you take a DNA sample in any case?
We have a kit that includes a swab, and usually you just open the kit and the person swabs each side of their cheek for about a couple seconds or so, and then you seal each swab and submit it to the lab for testing.
Are they swabbing the inside of their cheek or the outside of their cheek?
The inside of their cheek.
Okay. And is that what happened with Mr. Moss?
Yes.
And did you seal those swabs in an envelope?
Yes, we did.
And was his name and identifying information written on the outside of that envelope?
Yes.
And was that swab, or I guess it sounds like maybe more than one swab in there?
Well, there's one swab for each side of the cheek.
Oh, okay, I see. So 2 swabs total?
Correct.
Right. Was that envelope containing those swabs provided to the Savannah FBI office?
Yes, it was.
Is that because the Savannah FBI office was essentially like the lead office for the FBI of the case?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you see in front of you a document marked as State's Exhibit 34.
Yes, I do.
Do you recognize that document?
Yes, I do.
What is it?
It's the consent form that Mr. Moss signed. It's a handwritten consent form. We didn't have one with us, so we just hand wrote, I, Henry Bubba Moss, consent to providing a DNA swab to the FBI.
And is that a fair and accurate copy of the original handwritten form?
Yes, it is.
Does it include a line for Mr. Moss to sign?
Yes,
And did he sign?
he did.
And does it include a line for a witness to sign?
Yes.
And who was the witness?
The witness was Brian Ozden.
Your Honor, I would move this document into evidence as State's Exhibit 34.
I review the judge. I don't have any objection to it.
Okay, State's Exhibit 34 is admitted.
And what does this document reflect as to the date that this DNA sample was collected?
October 13th, 2022.
Okay. Does it look there like somebody actually wrote October 23 and then
Yes.
corrected it to 13?
Yes, that was my mistake, and I corrected it to the 13th.
Okay. Thank you very much. One moment, please, Your Honor. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Hilliard?
Just a couple, Judge. Grab the microphone.
Good afternoon, Agent Rajabi. How are you?
Great. How are you?
Good. So you were contacted, I guess, on October 5th, and it seems like it was October 13th. You had already contacted and collected the DNA sample from Mr. Moss, correct?
Correct.
And then turned it back over to the Savannah office.
Correct.
Did that include everything that you did as you were asked in this case?
I believe, I'm not sure if it was after the 13th. I think it was. We went back and collected fingernail and hair samples from Mr. Moss as well that were submitted for some testing, but I don't know. I don't remember what that testing was.
Was that sometime later?
Sometime later, yes.
And again, but I guess I should ask a better question then. So with regard to the collection and the interviews, that was basically all you were asked
Yes,
to do.
correct.
And you turned all of that back over to the Savannah office,
That's
correct?
correct.
That's all the questions I got. Thank you.
All right, any further questions for the agent?
No, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. You are excused. Okay, the state may call its next witness.
Brian Ozden.
Please declare to raise your right hand.
The evidence you shall give the court and jury in the trial of this issue shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help
Please declare to raise your right hand.
The evidence you shall give the court and jury in the trial of this issue shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, ma'am. Step this way, please.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Could you please introduce yourself to the jury?
Yes, my name is Brian A. Ozden. I'm an Assistant Special Agent in charge of the FBI Atlanta Division.
Are you Brian with an I or with a Y?
With an I.
Okay. And how do you spell Ozden?
It's Ozden.
And how long have you been with the FBI?
For about 21 years, a little over 21 years.
Have you been assigned to the Augusta office the entire time?
I was assigned to the Augusta office in 2003. I worked there until 2015, where I did an overseas tour until 2018. I came back as the supervisor for the Augusta and Statesboro office, and then in 2023 I was promoted to Assistant Special Agent in charge, which covers all of the offices outside of Atlanta, which includes the Augusta and Statesboro office as well.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about your education before joining the FBI? Where'd you go to school?
Yes, sir. I went to the University of South Carolina. I have a degree in business management science, concentrating in operations, production management, and information systems. Following my graduation from college, I went to work for IBM Corporation, joined the Air Force Reserves, and then following September 11th, 2001, I joined the FBI in 2003.
Now, at some point, did you become involved in the investigation into the disappearance of Quentin Simon?
Yes, sir, I did.
We've just heard testimony from Special Agent Rajabi that your office became involved on day one on October 5th. Is that what you recall?
I was made aware of it on day one, yes.
And how did you become aware of it?
There was an individual that was related to the case. We called him Bubba. Henry Moss. He was the biological father of the child, so the Savannah office contacted me to try to locate him and ask him some questions. In addition to that, I was also contacted because of my involvement with having involvement with the Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team, so I was also asked to assist for that reason.
So initially, were you involved in the effort to conduct some interviews regarding the whereabouts of Henry Bubba Moss Jr. on the night of October 4th, morning of October 5th?
Yes,
Okay. And did you and your team conduct those interviews?
we did.
Okay. You mentioned something about the CARD team, I think.
Yes.
Can you tell us what the CARD team is?
So within the FBI, because I've worked a number of cases, crimes against children, I requested, applied to be, and was put on the Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team. It's a group of FBI agents and support employees that specialize in the recovery of missing children. I was put on that team in 2014. I took a small break when I was overseas, and then I was put back on the team when I returned to the United States in 2018. At this particular time, I was designated as a team leader for CARD and had been on numerous deployments for this type of case, so these were not unfamiliar.
Had you had any training in the area of child abductions by the time October of 2022 rolled around?
Yes, we have annual conferences, training, best practices, a number of specialized trainings, and numerous things that may help to locate. I also teach and have taught numerous times on the recovery of missing children.
Okay. And, we've talked about these interviews pertaining to Henry Bubba Moss Jr., but those did not occur in the Savannah area, did they?
No, sir. They were in the AOR that I was responsible for at the time, in the Augusta AOR, which is area of responsibility.
I'm glad you clarified the acronym, because that's going to be my next question. In your capacity, though, as a team leader with the Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team, did you in fact come to Savannah?
I did. I was asked by the supervisor of Savannah. He and I had worked together because we're peers. He knew of my involvement in the CARD team, and he asked me to come and assist them with their investigation.
And what sort of assistance did you provide initially?
So the first thing I did was just had everybody we met in the conference room, we had a briefing, what they knew up to that point. The CARD team has a very specific process that we follow. What we wanted to do is, because we were still very early on in the investigation, we just kind of wanted to look at what they had done and then kind of reset, starting with the card process. Not to overlook anything they'd already done, but just to go back and do it the way that the card lays it out and does it from start to finish. So I started to put some of those pieces in process and help the investigative team with some of the things that I knew from my experience in working a number of these types of cases, how they could maybe go back and start from that and use that process to try to locate Mr. Quentin Simon.
Now, we've heard testimony that the 911 call was on October 5th, 2022, and that was essentially day one of the investigation. When was it that you came in as the card team leader to provide the consultation services that you provided oversight?
I learned about it from both Agent Snyder and Supervisory Special Agent Clark on day one, but I don't think I arrived there until it was either late day 2 or early day 3. I can't remember specifically.
Maybe the 6th or the 7th?
Very close on, yes.
Did you all establish a command post?
We established, so there was multiple command posts throughout the course of the investigation, but there was one. Initially, I was doing all my work from the FBI's Savannah RA, and then we moved the command post out to, I think it was Chatham County's Sheriff's Office training range.
When you say Savannah RA, what do you mean?
The Savannah Resident Agency, that's the sub-office. It's part of the Atlanta Division, but it's got a group of agents that work and cover the area of responsibility, the counties that are responsible from Savannah.
If I've been calling the Savannah RA the Savannah FBI office, is that more or less accurate?
It's the same thing. It's just, resident agency is a technical name for them, but most people do just call them the Savannah FBI office. It's easier.
Did you advise on the proper conduct of neighborhood canvasses involving questionnaires?
Yes, sir. One of the first things that we look at from the card process is a good neighborhood canvas. When we talk about neighborhood canvas, where the child, in the area where the child went missing, we have a very thorough process where you interview every single resident within a specified area, and that area is basically determined based on looking at a map and a logical distance that a child may be able to wander off or travel away, or anybody might have seen something suspicious. So I helped set the parameters for that area, and then we set a team out to do a neighborhood canvas in the area around the missing child's residence.
Were you involved in providing oversight and advice on the proper conduct of a neighborhood canvas in the Buckhalter Garrard Avenue area, location of the residence in question?
Yes, sir.
And were you involved in providing oversight and advice in reference to a neighborhood canvas at Azalea Mobile Home Plaza?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how did Azalea Mobile Home Plaza come onto the radar from your recollections?
Because we were aware of the fact that the mother had traveled to that area. That becomes part of the area of where we're looking. So we assigned then a specific parameter around that particular mobile home park, and we conducted the very similar neighborhood canvas that we did around the home with that area in the mobile home park.
And what is, I've mentioned questionnaires, and I think you said questionnaires were involved. Can you tell us about these questionnaires that are used for neighborhood canvases?
Yes, sir. The questionnaires are something that the FBI has spent a lot of time and research on. They're in consult with our behavioral analysis unit. These questions are designed, and it's a several page. We identify everybody in a specific residence. We ask them to try to refresh their memory. Did you see any vehicles? Do you have any cameras at your house? There's a whole series of things that people that don't work child abductions may not necessarily think to ask. So these questionnaires assist our law enforcement partners and the team that's out there doing the neighborhood survey. They give them a series of, it's like 3 or 4 pages worth of questions that help to stimulate and provide us then investigative leads, whether that be video or somebody saw a vehicle or something. And we try to make sure that we hit every single house and every single adult resident in the house to ask them these questions so that we're making sure we catch as much data as we possibly can. So in this particular case, we did both the residence where the child lived and the mobile home park. We can also customize those questionnaires if we have something specific. We can add 1 or 2 extra questions, and I believe in this case we did that as well.
And is all of this part of the FBI's best practices for investigating child reported child abductions. I'll say.
Yes, this is all part of the Child Abduction Rapid Deployment Team's handbook. It's provided to state and locals. It is considered best practice.
Now, from your perspective, did the investigative team comply with best practices and follow the advice that you were giving in this case?
Yes, sir, they absolutely did.
And that starts with calling you all in the first place, I suppose.
Correct.
Now, at some point, were you involved in making contact with an outfit called Team Adam?
Yes, sir. Because of my involvement on the CAR team and I've worked a number of these kinds of cases. One of the things that we bring to the table as the CAR team is the outreach that we have through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. One of the resources that they have is a group called Team Adam. Team Adam is a group of retired volunteers, former law enforcement. They have a number of services. They'll come out and help do neighborhood canvases with you. They'll come out and help do any kind of search. But one of the very specific resources they have is a landfill team, and they're experts. It's a couple individuals that are really experts on landfill science. And if you've worked in these kinds of cases, that is definitely an area of concern when you have missing children as landfills. So I, after being briefed on the case and kind of seeing where some of the data was going, I reached out to our CARD headquarters at FBI headquarters, and then we reached out to Team Adams' landfill team to bring them on as part of our assistance team.
And did anyone from Team Adams' landfill team respond to Savannah and to the Savannah area and assist in this case?
Yes, sir. Two individuals that were experts in that field came down to assist myself and the investigative team over the course of that weekend.
Where and by that weekend, are you referring to the first weekend of the investigation?
Yes, sir.
So, talking about Wednesday, October 5th. So we're talking about like the 8th or 9th of October.
Yeah, and I don't remember the date specifically, but I know that Monday was a holiday, so they might have. It might have been Monday, the holiday day, that they flew down. But I want to say they flew down on Sunday, and we met at the landfill that Monday morning on the holiday.
And by this time, a specific landfill had been identified?
Yes, sir.
And had a specific area of that landfill further been identified?
It had been. So we had, using the data that we had kind of uncovered up to that point, we were able to provide the Team Adam experts and the landfill folks some of our initial findings, and they were able to identify an area within the landfill that was most likely to contain the garbage collection from the areas that we were most interested in.
And then going forward from that, once you have an area of interest at the landfill, what service is it that Team Adam then provides? What do they do?
So Team Adam they speak the language of the landfill experts, and it is, I've learned, a very technical science, if you will. The way that garbage collection is brought into a landfill, it goes to a transfer station from the trucks. From the transfer stations, very specifically put in an area that they've designated for that particular day or days, whatever the length of time it is. So that these experts, they can communicate with the landfill engineers, so they can tell you that if this particular garbage truck, if you will, collected from this area on this date, it went into this particular section of the landfill, which then gave us, it's still a needle in a haystack, but it's a smaller haystack. So it's still very difficult to find, but it's a much smaller area than before.
And do they perform calculations designed to kind of guide you in estimating how much garbage you're going to have to search through and how long this might take and how many people it might take and so forth? They
do. Landfill searches, and I've been a part of several of them. They're very difficult. They're personnel requirements and hazmat requirements. So by having these experts tell us exactly where they feel and drawing the box and narrowing the scope of the search, because we also talk about compression rates as the truck pushes garbage down. So even though you may be looking at a small area, you may have thousands of cubic feet of trash to go through. So they help us with all those calculations. And in this particular case, they were instrumental in finding an area and then helping us decide what resources we would need to logically be able to go through that area.
What do you remember about the estimate that they provided you as in terms of how long this might take and how many people it might take?
It was long and it was going to be expensive, but it was not undoable. It was short enough that we felt like if we wanted to find Quentin Simon's remains, that would be it was worth the efforts to do it.
Was it on the order of weeks?
Yes, sir. I believe it was more than 3. I can't remember exactly, but it was definitely not going to be more. It was definitely going to be more than a couple weeks.
One moment, please.
Yes, sir.
Now, I want to just briefly go back to the Henry Bubba Moss aspect of the case. Did you have ongoing contact with him for a period of time?
I did.
And how did he communicate with you?
We communicated through text, through phone calls, and through in person.
So had he provided a phone number with you? Or to you, I mean?
We got it, I think, first, but then he confirmed that was his, and I talked to him. Mostly, he was very difficult. He works, and he's a laborer, so he's often out doing stuff and doesn't have immediate access to his phone. So I would sometimes text him, and he would get back to me later to meet up. There was several meetings that we had through the process.
Do you see in front of you a document marked as States Exhibit 82?
I do.
Do you recognize that document?
I do recognize that.
Is that a screenshot of a portion of your text messages with Henry Bubba Moss?
Yes, sir, it is.
Does it fairly and accurately depict that portion of the text messages?
It does.
And more importantly, does it contain his phone number on it?
It does contain his phone number.
Your Honor, I would introduce this into evidence as States Exhibit 82.
I don't have any objections, Judge. I've already reviewed it.
Very well. States Exhibit 82 is admitted.
Now, can you read from that exhibit and tell us what his phone number was?
His phone number is 706-526-1970.
Text messages from during the investigation, not recently, right?
They were during the investigation from my phone to his phone.
All right, thank you. One moment, please, Your Honor. No further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Dean. Mr. Hilliard?
I don't have any questions for the witness, Judge.
Very well. Thank you, and there's, I presume, no reason to not excuse him.
No, he didn't excuse, Your Honor.
You're excused, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor.
You can